We are live. Hello. I'm
Hello, friends.
I'm Alex, better known as Mr. Puddins, and joining me tonight is Meghan, aka Meghan Lynn for the win.
That's
You
what they
may
call me.
you may recognize her from such wonderful shows that also air on this channel, such as No Initiative's Quest to the Soaring City on Mondays, and Unprepared, which happens kind of whenever we have a chance to make it happen.
Yeah. Once a month-ish.
And you might recognize
Ideally, once a month.
Yeah, and I'm Alex, Mr. Puddins. You might recognize me from such chromatic chimera programs as Steam Spell and Agora's Bells. And coming in October, Bloody Portrait, Zweihander Renaissance vampire game. And yes, I was making a Troy McClure joke. All Simpsons references aside, are you ready to talk about Powered by the Apocalypse, Meghan?
I am literally at all times ready to talk about Powered by the Apocalypse.
So why don't
At
you?
all times.
Yeah. So why don't you? Quick disclaimer before I forget. There is a certain Powered by the Apocalypse game that uses the system that was very popular for a long time that we will not be discussing tonight, and you will never see on this channel. It begins with a D and ends in old or orald, so you get it. So we won't be answering any questions pertaining to that. We won't even be touching on it. So anyway, Meghan, would you like to kind of tell us what the hell is Powered by the Apocalypse?
What the hell is Powered by the Apocalypse? Powered by the Apocalypse is, or it seems very, it's a really, really good game system. It's a game system developed by Vincent Baker and Maggie Baker. Um, it's used in a whole bunch of really amazing TTRPGs. It's a 2d6 system. Um, Originated with Apocalypse World, which I know you had wanted to touch on. But really tonight we're gonna kind of talk very broadly about PbtA as a framework system rather than doing deep dives into any of the games, although I'm sure there will be plenty of future system talks where we will dive
Yes.
into them because we both have a lot to say and have a lot of very strong feelings about PbtA games. But this
Yes.
is really just kind of a basic overview of the system and the mechanics and that kind of good stuff.
Yes. And plus,
And my dogs are also very excited about PbtA.
it's so pervasive. There are so many games that utilize the system that like we can't really. Uh-oh. Sorry, my headphones are sending me a boop boop message that they need to be charged. 1 second.
Oh, here, this is when we just vamped for time. And there it is. Time has been vamped.
Sweet. Um, let's see. So Powered by the Apocalypse. It's
Yes.
pervasive. It's everywhere. There are so many games. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's just it would be so hard to do a deep dive because there's so many damn games. So like we will maybe do more in the future if it's something that would interest you. Let us know. So why the hell is it called Powered by the Apocalypse? As Meghan said, it's
Why is it called Powered by the Apocalypse?
yes, based off of the Apocalypse World game. So the Apocalypse World was kind of this like a post-apocalyptic game that leaned a lot into like the narrative design of the game. Um, it kind of like it was a very vague setting, and like players would help build the setting as they build their characters. It was really cool, and it laid the framework for what it is now. So the core mechanic is basically a 2d6 system. And instead of like games like Dungeons and Dragons and a lot of other RPGs where you have to hit a specific target number and or go over it or under it, depending what system you're playing, Powered by the Apocalypse introduced this wonderful, wacky idea of degrees of success. Meghan, would you care to elaborate on degrees of success for us?
Yeah, and this is really what I love most about PbtA as a genre of games, as a role player who really leans more towards the narrative side of things, which if anybody is at all familiar with anything I've ever done, I'm always about the narrative. That's entirely my jar of jam. So PbtA works like Alex said, it's a 2d6 system, but how it differs from a lot of games is that it has the concept of a mixed success. So you have a failure and you have your successes, as you always do, but it also has this middle ground of a mixed success where and this is the broadest section, you have a higher chance of landing in that mixed success area. In and it means different things depending on the games that you're playing. Sometimes it just means you are less effective in what you're trying to do. Sometimes you have to give something up in order to accomplish what you want to do. Other times you are given a tough choice, and you choose one thing or the other depending on what it was you were trying to accomplish. And it's just something that makes it so much more narratively interesting than just saying, yes, you succeed, no, you don't.
And
It gives you a lot of like cool gray area, like as a
yeah,
GM and as a player, to think about what you're willing to do, like what you're willing to lose or what you're willing to do in order to make something a full success.
yeah, and it's so freaking cool. Like you said, it's so narrative. Honestly, when I went from like traditional role playing, I guess that's, I don't like to, like, I don't want to call PbtA non-traditional role playing,
Mhm.
TTRPG. It's very
Mhm.
much ingrained in the hobby.
Yeah.
I would say it has just as much of a place as Dungeons and Dragons does in the hobby. But I'm using traditional more in the sense of
Mhm.
you either succeed or fail. It's just a
Mhm.
binary system.
Right.
That's what I mean by that. In more what was so hard for me when I jumped from a more traditional framework into the Powered by the Apocalypse framework was just the amount of freedom I fucking had. Just like, I'm so City of Mist was my first PbtA romp, and let me tell you, I fucking loved it. Right? It's just, it took a session or two to kind of get used to like how much freedom and leeway
Mhm.
you get as a player. There's so much more agency. There's a focus on the narrative. GMs
Mhm.
don't roll nearly as much in PbtA hacks, or at least
Or
a lot of them,
or
or
at
ever.
all.
Yeah, it's kind of ciphery like that, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I know in like the Masks campaign that I play on, like our GM never rolls, period,
Yeah,
ever.
I mean,
And I've run Monster of the Week and I don't think I've ever rolled a die either as a GM.
yeah, right. And like as a GM, the only thing I really give a shit about rolling is damage, right?
Which in a lot of times that's already established ahead of time. There isn't a
Yeah,
roll for damage. It's a roll, and you take, depending on the system, of course. Like something like
yeah,
Monster of the Week has a concept of harm, but it's usually just one move is one harm, and
yeah,
that's kind of how that's handled, unless it's like something that's super powerful,
yeah.
that kind of thing.
So you,
Um,
so you said move, and I'm going to use that as my segue here. I want
ooh,
to dive into more of the mechanics here before I start like
yeah.
really like getting excited like I just did. I don't want to go on a tangent because first, like, let's talk about that stuff. Like a lot of the language that Powered by the Apocalypse uses is very, I
Mhm.
find it very easy to understand, simple,
Mhm.
and very accessible to like someone who
Mhm.
hasn't played an RPG before. Like things you do as a character that you roll for are called moves.
Mhm.
Um, you have playbooks, which are essentially like your character class in a more
Mhm.
traditional framework. Sometimes it combines basically just your whole character concept into one
Mhm.
thing instead of like picking race, class, background, whatever. It kind of puts it into this one beautiful package, so you don't have to put all that work into
Mhm.
figuring out the mechanics of this character concept you want to play. It's there. It's a playbook.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of it is very plug and play. It's you pick up the book and you decide what playbook that you want to play, and everything is all within those 2, 3, 4 pages of your playbook. It's usually you pick two moves to start and then you're good to go. There's very little bar to entry,
Mm-hmm.
um, both as a player and as a GM with PbtA. I know I am not a confident GM
Mm-hmm.
by any extent meaning of the word, and I have run a couple PbtA games. Monster of the Week was my first, and I remember feeling very comfortable in prepared in a way
Really?
that if I had run a few like D&D one shots before and was just absolutely terrified of it, and to be completely honest had zero fun whatsoever running these games because I was so nervous about
Mm-hmm.
being prepared enough and remembering things. And the thing about PbtA is because it's very player driven.
Yeah. See,
So
I
the role
actually,
of a GM is very reactive. Like you have
yeah,
your story and you have the beats that you want to hit within that story, but so much of it is driven by the players, whether or
yeah.
not the players hit like fail or succeed on what they're trying to do. Like it's very reactive to what the player is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So the prep is incredibly low on the GM side because you can prep a whole bunch, but there's a very big chance that you're going to throw a lot of it out depending on
Yeah.
whether or not your players fail or succeed at certain things. So it's very easy to prep. The rules are very easy to parse. So like there's not too much to worry about like in that regard as far as like
Yeah.
missing something, which
I've
is also really cool.
I actually had the opposite experience trying to run it, and I know other GMs who've come from a similar background to me do too. And I think it's because
Hmm.
I've got decades of experience in the
Hmm.
traditional framework of
Right.
RPGs. So it was again very just jarring to kind of look at it and look at prep and be like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? Because I'll
Hmm.
admit it, I'm an over prepper. I prep so much, but most of my prep is more like location and lore and just kind
Hmm.
of like the random tables and the names that you might see. But like it's so it was just so again kind of like going from player, it can be jarring at first, but
Oh,
I just
for
want to let
sure.
folks know, like, if you're coming from that background that you're coming from me, you still might love it. Give it a chance, work with it, because it's a very rewarding and very fresh and novel experience.
Yeah, I am an over prepper by way of just having immense anxiety about being underprepared.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an exercise in letting go on my end to kind of like, okay, we're gonna prepare, like it's more, I think more in terms of preparing a story versus preparing like mechanical things
Yeah.
like encounters or NPCs, like stuff like that. Like that's the kind of stuff that I would leave to, like I would make basic like NPC notes and stuff like that and like
Yeah.
location notes, but it's more for me prepping the framework of the story that I'm
Yes.
trying to tell.
Yes. Ever since I've played a lot of PbtA games, my prep has definitely gone more towards immersing my players into the environment they're in, making a much more living world, a breathing world, and just like again like writing out descriptions, because now I got time for that shit. Like the beauty of the simplicity of the system is like I don't feel like I'm fucking up a rule every time I have
Hmm.
to make a call, because that's what the game's built around, is just make a fucking call. It's
Hmm.
written where D&D they try to be like, "Oh, you can just change it up and make calls as you need to." And it's like, "Yeah, but it's not written that way." But PbtA is. It's
Hmm.
written for that whole, "Oh shit, I need to adjust on the fly." And it does it beautifully, because tags are the fucking genius of the system. So folks will say it's the degrees of success. It's tags, motherfuckers.
Do you want to talk about tags?
Hell yes, I do, because they're the when I played City of Mist, tags were basically just a +1 or a -1 you'd get from either like your skill cards essentially, or from just like environmental, circumstantial, anything could apply a tag. And like RGM was really good about applying tags very creatively, so it made it fun. And City of Mist has it all like just built in. City of Mist is a really good. I'm gonna like just gush about City of Mist a lot during this, because it's such a good powered by the apocalypse game. The concept of it's cool. I highly recommend it. But it's a great example of how tags work. It's like, oh, I'm making a roll. Well, this tag, and this tag apply. So +1s for those 3 tags. But hey, you got a hazard tag because it's slippery out, -1. You've got a gaping wound in your side. That's a -1 or 2 there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it makes the math very easy, especially with the 2d6. You get that bell curve. So instead of like d20 where it's like roll the die, you have a 5% to hit fucking anything. Because of 2d6, your percentages are more curved out in the end. Like you said, you're going to end up succeeding with complications more. But tags are kind of like your modifiers to rolls that you would see in a more traditional game. And because they're so easy to apply, it's really easy to account for a lot of circumstantial things, right? And like you can get crunchy with the tags. Like you can make like City of Mist has specific types of tags. And you can add other like boosts or drawbacks while you have those tags. Like in City of Mist, the GM, Touch a Tiefling Chris, he like I had an item on me that was like a neck protector, and we were fighting a vampire. And like that neck protector, as long as I had that neck protector tag, I was immune to vampire bite attacks. And it's beautiful because it's really easy, like you said. You don't have to prep that shit. You can just, oh, I thought of it. Okay, yeah. Oh, it's just a tag. And then Sam brings up a really good point in chat. You essentially, like your character concept, you're basically building, you're making your character. And it's just so cool. It's like, I have a concept. I can make it happen. Sorry, I love tags so much, and the language in Powered by the Apocalypse is so wonderful. I basically poured it into everything I use now because it just makes sense.
It's exciting for me when people get really excited about things, because this is how I sound when I talk about, I don't know, literally every aspect of masks. Because it's been 0 days since I was able to shut the fuck up about what a good game Masks is.
Look, it's good. I've looked through the playbook. It's fucking good.
It's very good. So let me quickly look back to my outline. So
no worries. I mean, we kind of hit a lot of the big beats we were going for.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that. So City of Mist, was City of Mist your first?
That was my first time. That was my first rodeo. That's what took my Powered by the Apocalypse virginity, and I loved every minute of it.
Like I definitely need to play City of Mist. It sounds so much fun.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, what I love about this show is we both come from very different backgrounds. Like we both have very different tastes.
We absolutely do.
We were talking about before the show. I was even like, hey, if I say something sounds like it's a Meghan kind of game, like it's not an insult. That's just my way of understanding the game.
Yeah.
And it's just so good because like you said, it's versatile.
Yeah. And there are so many different games within that genre, which I will lead into. Somebody in chat said, like, what are some ways that different PbtA games can differ? So PbtA being such a broad-reaching genre of games, you can have any different kinds of tones and themes and things like that. So currently, as I said just moments ago, I am completely and utterly enamored with the game Masks, which is a PbtA game about teen superheroes. That is just so artfully and beautifully designed to replicate in a mechanical way like the emotional turmoil that teenagers go through, because that's like, it's not just a game about teen superheroes, it's a game about teens who are also superheroes. So within that framework, and this is something that you'll see in a lot of PbtA games, is you'll have the basic 2d6 fail, mix, success, and then different games will bring in different aspects to build upon that framework. So Masks has a few different mechanics, one of which is labels, which is a very cool emotional mechanical label, and then they have influence, which is also a way to mechanize emotional and narrative beats built on top of the pre-existing PbtA framework, which is super cool. Everyone should play Masks. It's very good.
And to, to float back towards moves, because like I wanted to say it, never got a good chance. This is the perfect chance. You say the narrative. The coolest part about moves is when you're making a Powered by the Apocalypse game, you can make different moves for different situations. Like Urban Shadows. I was talking with Matthew Foreman, who is in chat. We have a star amongst us, folks. About what was really cool about Urban Shadows was a lot of the narrative mechanics that are in it. And like how you can get these super narrative moves. Like if you like have the super vulnerable scene with someone, you can use your unique move and stuff. And it's just, and I'm just like, I love it.
Yeah, it's really cool to have games that moves are triggered by stuff in the narrative versus just, I want to do this sweet move. I want to like use my magic. I want to do it like moves that are triggered specifically by narrative things.
Mm-hmm.
Masks does it really well.
Urban Shadows does it
Or
excellently.
there's a really great PbtA game called Girl Underground, which is
Ooh.
inspired by like Wizard of Oz, Alice in
Yeah.
Wonderland, Labyrinth. That all of the moves are like in this social situation, roll this. Like none
Mm-hmm.
of the moves are like make a whatever
Yeah.
check. It's all like if you find yourself in a situation where your overconfidence has gotten you into trouble, roll this. Like it's that kind of thing. And the other really cool thing about PbtA is that writing custom moves, like as a GM, is it's so easy to do, or not even easy might not be the best word. It's set up in a way that it's easy to parse to make custom moves.
Yes.
Um, which is really cool because it's basically, yeah, it's when you do X, do Y,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have your framework for what you want to do, and it makes it really customizable when you're playing other games. So like if you're playing like some when you're playing a game and it's like, all right, so I know that my players are going to be in this CD bar.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to make a move that's like when you go into a place where you're super uncomfortable, roll this.
Yeah.
Or I know that my players are going to be here, so you can
Yeah.
custom
Okay.
move
I
as a
have to
GM
I,
to
I have
do.
to tell the story for Sam because Sam's in chat. So in our game we played, you can go back watch the VODs if you want, folks. They're on our YouTube. They're some of our best viewed VODs actually. Little self brag there because love yourself. My character seemed to really just fuck up royally every time he was on the third floor. So my GM just started saying, "Dude, you're on the third floor. That's a -1 tag." Like and like you said, like and he would like make like custom moves and stuff for those moments where it's like, oh, or it's like I would say like, "Hey, can I like do this?" It like that the beauty is the open-endedness. Like, "Hey, can I do this wild thing?" And it's like, "Yeah, sure you can." You know? Whereas in like Dungeons and Dragons, it's like, no, sorry, the rules. Actually, here's a really good way I like to look at it. The rules in Dungeons and Dragons say I can't because I can't do X because the rules say so. Powered by the Apocalypse takes that and says, fuck that noise, homie, and says, you can do X because the rules say you can. And that's the beauty, and that's where a lot of that player agency comes in. Alone is just from the basic framework of the mechanics saying I can do this. That's the beauty of the customizable moves and being able to make them is
Right.
you can do this because the rules say you can. Again,
Hmm.
other more traditional games, it's more like no, you can't because well, the rules say so.
Right. Like in that, I think stems from PbtA being the kind of system framework that is very player driven. It's the player saying, I am going to do this, and the GM going, all right, go
Mhm.
ahead.
Mhm.
We'll see how successful you are at doing this.
Yes.
In that comes from like the GM not rolling dice and just
Yes.
guiding the story and the players being the ones that are saying, this is what I am doing, this is where
Yes.
I'm going.
And
And
the beauty is it helps get rid of some of that tension between player and GM because in like a traditional framework, I'm actually actively making attack moves against my players. I'm actively harming them. Whereas in PbtA, if the player comes under harm, they did it themselves. They made the roll, not me. It's just the
yeah.
consequence of them failing or
Hmm.
they succeeded, but it was a rough success.
Yeah, because that's one of the things too. It could be like you take less harm. You're still taking it,
Yeah.
but it's lessened. And I think that's another cool thing that in at least in no PbtA games that I'm familiar with, like there is no initiative turn order or anything like that.
Yes. That
Like
fucks
most of
so
the
many
rest of the
people
game,
up.
it's because when you get a group of people that have only played like
Mm-hmm.
D&D
Mm-hmm.
and you enter into combat, everyone just sits there like, so do I just go? It's
Love
like, yes, you just go.
love Chris, but that was one of the hardest things for him to adjust to, and all of us, honestly. Like I even was like, so say go when? Wait, I can just do shit? Yo, okay.
You're in the driver's seat now, baby, just go.
Right?
Whereas me, where I'm just like, screw it, let's do this. Like,
Right.
ready to just jump right in and make up some badass shit that happens. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's like, I don't need no rules.
So
We're just gonna rock and roll.
so I think we've talked about really like this is the beauty of the system is there's not really a whole lot to it, so there's not
Hmm.
a whole lot to say like mechanics
Yeah.
wise. Um, I mean we can talk about some of the hacks we like. There's like a bajillion. My joke is if you can
There's.
think of it, it's kind of like the Rule 34. If you can think of it, there's a porno about it. My
Mhm.
joke is if you can think of it, there's a PbtA hack about it. Like there's a Watership Down one, I'm pretty sure. I mean,
Right.
but then
And
again, Fall of a Fraff is a band.
yeah, it's so like I don't want to say that it's easy because like game design is not easy. But it's as far as like bar of entry for trying to create original content.
Mm-hmm.
Like PBTA is written in such a way that you can
Do
just
it.
do that. Like if you
Yeah.
have a core idea, and I think the biggest thing with like writing a PBTA game, it starts because the game is driven by the players. The game starts with your playbooks. Like if you
Yeah.
have strong concepts for what kind of characters you want to be in this game, and you have a strong idea of what these playbooks are, you can go so far
Mm-hmm.
in writing a PBTA because everything else like kind of grows around the
100.
playbooks just as the rest of the game grows around your players and the decisions they make.
And a lot of the leveling too. Actually, let's touch on leveling a bit because it's
Yeah,
actually leveling's a big mechanic. Leveling's important. I wish
yeah.
people paid more attention to it when they wrote games. PBTA's most of its leveling that I've seen from the games of it I have played is less based on you hit a certain threshold, you've gained a level. It's more like how often are you using this ability? You using it a lot? You get better at it. You're not using it?
uh,
Maybe you don't get better at it.
in most of the PBTA games I play, you level when you fail. You mark
Really?
experience when you fail. It's the same. It's with masks and with Monster of the Week. You mark experience when you miss rolls, um, and when you miss, I think you get potential or you mark experience,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And when you get 5 of them, then you level up and you pick a new ability.
Uh huh.
Um, and I love that because it shows that I feel for me as a very narrative role player, like it shows that like it makes it more real because you're learning from your fuck ups and you
Yes.
only get better when you have failed at something a certain amount of times, and it just feels very
I'm
real to
almost
me.
certain that's in the original Apocalypse world
Mhm.
mechanics. I'm
Like
almost
yeah,
certain.
like that feels more real to me as a player, and it also like it doesn't beat you down when you fail. Like you're getting something out of it even if you are failing rolls. You know that you are working towards your next advance or your next level.
Mm-hmm.
um which I love because failing forward, like in a Powered by the Apocalypse game, like the good shit is in the failures.
Oh
Like
yeah, or
that's
the
where you
mixed
get those good
successes.
dramatic, or yeah, and the mixed successes. Like that's where you get the good dramatic moments, and that's where like the GM can really just go like really in on it and make
Yeah,
hard moves and give their players hard decisions, and that really pushes the story forward in a cool dramatic way.
and like the narrative moves and the narrative mechanics also help like push RP in an interesting direction. Where it's like instead of just saying here's a system that'll help you fight shit, it's like kind of like here's a system where you can tell cool stories with it. And what I also
Mhm.
really like is you can make it as basic or as crunchy as you fucking want. Like it's like
Mhm.
I've kind of written a few hacks myself lately for it. And it's like I've got one where it's like just super basic, super open-ended, super narrative, and then I'm writing another one that's just basically a full-ass game system of its own because it's like, oh yeah, I made this really crunchy. You can set like a traditional style RPG with stats, skills, classes, all that shit. You can set it in a Powered by the Apocalypse game. You can. Like it's the beauty of it. Like, and you don't have to use the framework of playbooks necessarily. You can kind of do like a build your own playbook type thing. I've seen that in a few of them where it's like instead of like picking one playbook, you pick a few different aspects that kind of flesh out the whole that is your character.
Very interesting. Yeah,
Yes.
like in me, I'm like I want my games as crunchy as like Greek yogurt. So I'm just like, nope, I'm good. Let me tell some stories. But it's speaks to the versatility of the
Yes.
framework of PbtA that
Mm-hmm.
it gives you something and then you build on top of it. And yeah, in chat, like I argue that like Blades in the
It
Dark
is.
and like
It's
in the Forged in the Dark games are
it
just
is.
very crunchy PbtA,
Yeah.
which is great. Blades in the Dark is a brilliantly designed game.
Right.
So is Scum and Villainy. So if you there are options there. Like if you want something that's a little less narrative and a little more crunch, there are games within the umbrella of PbtA that exist.
Hey,
Um,
you want
which
to be
is
really excited? You want to be really excited? John
I
Harper's
don't know.
working on a Greek
Aegon?
hero.
Oh,
Yes.
like I don't already know that he's writing a Greek
I
mythology
figured you
game.
did. I just wanted to say it on stream. I wanted to send some love John Harper's way because, as you
Yes,
said,
look at oh,
PBTA. I mean, Blades in the Dark
Blades.
is a fantastic fucking game, and it's so
There
affordable. Mwah.
it's yes, Blades in the Dark is wonderful. Um Aegon, I'm so excited about Aegon.
I think Colt would also kind of fall under the crunchy PBTA sliding
Mm-hmm.
scale. And fun fact, that one actually uses 2d10, so you can even fuck with like. There's a lot of parts of the system you can fuck with and still
Yeah,
have it be very faithful to the system.
right. Because there's very little yes, Blades somebody chat Blades was in the big itch bundle, so if you bought the
Ah,
bundle for racial
yes.
equality off of itch, Blades in the Dark is part of that.
Mm.
Um, so and definitely worth it.
I've bought
It's
it like
such a
3 times
good game.
on different things at this point.
Yeah, I own a physical copy of it because I'm a hoarder,
I
and I
mean,
have so many
I need
RPG books.
I need physical
Um,
copies. I feel you.
mhm.
I love it. And like the nice thing is a lot of those books they ain't too thick, so I don't have to worry about my bookshelf getting too full.
I mean, now I'm just looking. I have a whole shelf of like of literally just PBTA
Right.
books.
All right. So I guess we can
Because
kind of
it's my jam.
talk about some of the we've kind of like discussed some of the systems, and it's really important to note the creators are really chill about people using their core mechanic and
Which is
using their genre of game.
yeah,
And like
it's very cool.
it's really nice to see that. And they're like, yeah, you can like do whatever you want, and hell, we'll even host it on our website. Like, it's really nice to see that, and that's how we have all these wonderful PBTA games, is because they took the time, or they didn't even take the time. They just said, yeah, fucking use it. It's cool.
Hmm. Right.
So like we touched on some: City of Mist, Masks, Monster of the
Yep.
Week.
Mhm.
Colt got mentioned, Blades in the Dark, anything Forged in the Dark,
Yep. Scum and Villainy. Even like the Veil,
The
or
Veil,
I think it's yeah Veil. It's not Expanse. It's not Expanse. It's now I can't think of what it's called. The Sprawl.
the Sprawl, Spire. I
Um,
saw Spire got mentioned in chat.
well, Spire is Resistance, so it's different
Is
from
it? Oh, I thought it
PBTI.
was
Yeah.
PBTA.
Um,
That's how much I
yes,
know.
in the greatest role playing of all game of all time, Passion de la Passion,
Oh
which is
yes,
coming soon.
yes. Um,
Kick myself forever for missing that Kickstarter, but it's okay.
God, I've missed
It'll
a few
be
Kickstarters like that. That I'm like, damn, I wish I got in on that. I wish I
all
got
the
on the ground.
all the good shit comes out during my my self-imposed Kickstarter freezes when I go and back too many
Right,
RPGs at once.
right. All the good shit comes out when I'm broke. There's probably I think there a
Oh, I
Firebrands.
say also Firebrands is it's its own thing as well.
Uh,
Also written by Vincent and McGay Baker.
it's listed on the
Um,
website, so
um, yeah. Bluebeard's Bride
Bluebeard.
is
Ooh, yeah, that.
technically PBT. Bluebeard's Bride is an amazing feminine horror game. That is just
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's so good and so spooky, and I'm
Iron
playing it this
Sworn.
weekend and I'm very excited about it.
Ironsworn's another one. That's like that, like really
Mm.
low It's good low fantasy, like adventuring stuff. Like you want that good like King Arthur feel. Mwah.
Oh yeah, that's your
Ironsworn.
gem.
Oh yeah.
Let me see what I've got over here. Yeah, Girl Underground.
Ooh. Iron Edda.
Girl
Oh, I
Underground
forgot
is
about
really
this
good.
one. Iron Edda,
Yeah.
World of Metal and Bone. It's like about like mechs fighting giants.
Yeah, there's so many that basically it's kind of like whatever you want, whatever kind of genre you want, whatever kind of theme you want, you
Mm-hmm.
can probably find something that runs PBTA or PBTA adjacent in that
Worldwide
realm.
wrestling. Worldwide Wrestling, anybody? I did watch a stream of it last night. That game is a lot of fun. I own it. I need to try it because I've been watching Glow and I need to live my best Glow life. Yeah, like you said, there's just it's so hard to talk about all of the different and even like, oh, there's a superhero one. Yeah, there's like 3 superhero ones. What do you mean the superhero one? There's 3 of them.
No, the
It's
superhero one is obviously Mouse, because I'm incredibly biased. Sorry.
no, it's chill. But like that's the beauty of it, and like a lot of folks I think have played Powered by the Apocalypse and just don't fucking realize it.
Yeah, because like Q said in chat that the baker or oh no, that was in the meltdowns. The bakers have said that if that your game is PbtA if you feel like it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, right? Oh yeah,
Like it's just there. It's just this great all around basic framework that you can kind of fit anything onto, and that's what makes it so great. And that's what while you're having the conversation of like, I don't, is this PbtA? I don't know. Maybe it's kind
yeah,
of like that, or it's like this with a little extra stuff,
yeah.
and it's just so far reaching. And the great thing about it is how easy it is to parse, so it makes it so great that you can just pick up a game that's powered by the
Yeah.
apocalypse
Um,
and play it with little to no bar to entry on the because like there you have so many TTRPGs that are built around like crunch and these really in-depth
or they try to
mechanics,
do everything. Like
which
polyamorous Q brings up a good point. PBTA works really well with a core, like a thematic core
mhm,
to it. Like it does
yeah,
that. It does those things. Like it's like here's one thing. It does that
mhm.
one thing really well.
Yeah, like it's like what kind of story do you want to tell? And that's the question that PBTA asks, and then you build
Yeah.
it around there because so many of the games are you are this.
Mm-hmm.
Here's like Monster of the Week. It's like you are a group of monster hunters.
Yeah.
This game exists just to play a game of you being a group of monster hunters. Masks is you are a group
Heroes.
of teenage superheroes. This is a game
Yeah.
about being teenage superheroes. Like Blades in the Dark, you are a group of criminals.
City of
Like
Mist.
it's
You're a group of avatars of mythic characters.
right. Like it's very thematically driven by saying like these are the kind of people you are, and then the
Mm-hmm.
story goes around there. There's wherein something that's more like broad and open. It's like you can be anything that are, and it's a little more like crunchier or
Mm-hmm.
mechanically built in. Like when you get like those
Yeah.
kind of like I have not automatically think of like D&D and Pathfinder or like
Mm-hmm.
Zweihander that are very mechanically complex. Um, and if you want that kind of game, like that's awesome, and you can, but it takes a little more time with the
Yeah.
source material before you can just jump right in and play. Whereas I feel like with a lot of the PBTA games, you can just pick it up and
Yeah.
go
I
as
will.
long as your GM kind of knows what they're doing. Like as a player,
Yeah.
you can, it's very easy to just be like, this is what I'm doing.
The main advantage I see with crunchier games, and this is something I don't, this isn't any hate towards PBTA or any narrative design
Mhm.
games, but crunchy games, I do kind of feel like you do get a little more freedom in your character design. I know a lot of people do like all the options that come with crunchy games. Like, if you want to be able to really differentiate your character, yeah, you need a lot of rules to
Mhm.
make them all different. And
Yeah.
that's why PBTA does the core theme very well, is because it's like you said, it's like we're all kind of similar. There's something that
Yeah.
unifies us. Whereas like games like the crunchier games, there's not necessarily the unifying thing is you're an adventuring party, not like but that's really broad, right? Like
Hmm.
you're a group of people who come together to do adventure. It's super
Right.
broad and open ended.
Yeah, like PBTA deals a lot with like a lot of what you see is it's archetypes. Like your
Mm-hmm.
playbooks are archetypes
Mm-hmm.
less than like this is what you are, whereas in a game where you have like classes and more intense character creation, like you're kind of you create a person and then you're putting stuff around them, whereas PBTA you're like I am this archetype and I'm going to fill in
Yeah.
the other details around there, um which is like interesting because then if you want to like subvert genres and stuff like that, like you can take the archetype and you can futz with it a certain amount,
Oh
but
yeah.
you're there is less of um a customization like out of the box. Like you
Mm-hmm.
the game is what you make it. Like if you want to do something weird and your GM's cool with it in a PbtA game, do something weird.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, like right out of the box, there is less customization, I'll
Yeah.
say. Um,
I think you have to approach it from a narrative mindset. And the problem I think a lot of the people who play crunchy games is this was myself included. It is important to talk about the jarring switch because it's, as I said, it's
yeah.
fucking worth it. It's worth it.
Hmm.
And you know what? Nothing like changing it up once in a while. Play a
It's
different
hard to
game.
min-max a PbtA game.
Yeah, I like look, I like min-maxing. I like it. I do it for fun. I enjoy it. I'm a bit of a power gamer, not like dangerously so much that I'm like
Mhm.
breaking the game or interrupting the story, but
Mhm.
like I like to be good at what I'm good at. So, and that's the beauty of tags too, is you
And
can,
there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, and that's the beauty of the
Like,
playbooks and the tags, but like you kind of have to approach, like you said, you have to approach playbooks less like, okay, this is my character, and more of like, here's my base concept, like here's my
mhm.
archetype, here's what I can do, here's like what I'm built around. But then you fill in a
Mhm.
lot of those blanks. You fill in a lot of that
Mhm.
stuff, like what weapon do I use? There's no, you kind of just say I use a whatever, right?
Mhm.
What do I look like? You know, if you're like in
Yeah,
a
like
setting that's not human centric, am I a person or am I a talking
yeah.
bear? You know, stuff like depending on
Yeah,
the hack you're playing.
you're painting in much broader strokes when you are creating a character for um most PbtA games. Like you're painting in broad strokes less so than like I hit with this amount of proficiency for this amount of damage and
Mm-hmm.
this is my very specific weapon that I have, whereas instead a lot of the times you get just like I'm going to do damage to it,
Yeah.
end of statement. Like that's what it is, and then you fill it in narratively and you flavor it how you want, because there aren't a lot of mechanics associated with things like that. It's a lot of narrative
Mm-hmm.
flavoring, um which can be very fun, but it can also, like you were saying, be very jarring to someone who is used to having a lot of supporting mechanics to tell you what you can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Like because it
That's
can't
me.
like exactly, like the freedom is awesome, but the freedom can also be very jarring when you're used to
Yes.
being very confined to a certain amount of things you can do.
It's kind of
Um,
like I just got dumped in an open field. The fuck am I supposed to do? Or kind of like it's kind of like after I finished college, I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm on my own. I can do whatever the hell I want."
and
This
then
is
you're like, I
weird.
can do whatever I can do whatever the hell I want.
It's both
Like,
it's both exciting, but it can also be
mhm,
a bit intimidating.
mhm,
I don't know if I like I've mentioned it to some of my friends who are much on like much more like narrative like you is that's something I have a hard time with is I actually feel like I'm not up to the task of playing the narrative game with the narrative folks because I'm like here are these people crafting all these cool stories. I play a stoner priest in my game like it's just it can be a bit intimidating if you're not used to that style of game and I think that's important to let folks know. But also, I do want to let folks know if you can push past it,
mhm,
it's worth it. It really is. It's rewarding.
mhm.
I found it very liberating, honestly. I
Yeah.
once I kind of figured it, like once it clicks, it's kind of like that moment when you figure out like, ah shit, I've been playing Dark Souls like a silly Billy this whole time. I'm not supposed to be playing this like Diablo. This is Mega Man. It's like that moment where it's like when it clicks for me when I had that ooh, aha moment. It's like, oh,
Mhm,
okay. And then I really leaned into it and started having like tons of
mhm,
fun with it. Because then everyone was like, "Oh wow, Alex, that was really cool that thing you did." And you create so many memorable moments, like the
mhm.
third floor
Yeah.
bullshit, because the mechanics let you do it, and I love it.
Mhm. And I wish that there was more, and I know that they're out there, but like more mainstream like AP content for games like this that are
Mm-hmm.
very narrative focused. Because like the easiest, a lot of the ways to like learn how to play these games is by like watching and listening. Like when I
Mm-hmm.
started my Masks campaign, my GM and I both started listening to Protean City Comics, which everybody should listen to because it's a very good Masks AP podcast. And I basically, without reading too deeply into the rules of the of the core rulebook, like learned how to play the game by listening to them play it because that's the kind of system that it is
Yeah.
like once you get a feel for like the tone and the flow of the game,
Yeah.
it becomes so much easier to piece everything together. Um, but now's the perfect time because I know here on the Chromatic Chimera we're starting a Monster of the Week
Yes, we are.
campaign, which I'm
Saturdays.
so excited about because Monster of the Week is absolutely fantastic. Um, in a super, super fun game. That was my first
Mm-hmm.
exposure to PbtA. My first exposure was actually listening to the Adventure Zone when they played Monster of the Week
Yeah.
um between their D&D campaigns.
Honestly,
And that
PbtA is one of those ones I would actually recommend watching. I actually don't recommend watching
mhm,
actual play because it creates a really weird expectation and you might get the wrong
mm,
idea about how a game is supposed to be played.
yeah.
I'm not going to say any specific names.
Yeah,
Um,
but PBTA games,
you
yeah,
kind of
like
need
I
to.
feel like because there's so much freedom in it, there
Mm-hmm.
aren't really like I feel like it's hard to put like hard and fast expectations on something like that that is very, very narrative. Um, and and I think yeah, like by I'm not really an AP person either. Listening to Protean City kind of turned me around on APs and got me back
Yeah.
into them. But I think that speaks to the system
Yes.
just as much as like the players and the story that they're telling is that a PBTA system because it's so much more focused on storytelling than it is on mechanics and things like that
You
makes it
ready for a really nuclear take? You ready for this? CR's really fucking up playing D&D. You want to play a narrative-focused game? Go play Powered by the Apocalypse. Honestly, Powered by the Apocalypse is the actual play game. That's the game that people should be playing for actual plays if you want to tell these big narratives. And I'm not saying like you shouldn't watch actual play. I'm just saying I don't recommend it for new folks trying to learn, using it to learn a game, especially a game like Dungeons and Dragons. I would say read the book first, then watch an actual play
hmm
because they're and like you said, I feel like PBTA gets represented the most accurately when it comes to being played actual play.
hmm
Like I'll even admit it, I run my crunchy games very different on stream than I do when I'm just
hmm
janking around with my friends, right? Like it's it's very much a different type of game and it does lend itself. So if you're into the actual play thing, PBTA systems are like the games are great for it
hmm
because like you
like
said, it's this focus on narrative.
yeah, heavy theming, very narrative focused. Like and it's fun. Like they're just it's fun to play a game where doing kind of what you want and breaking a lot of rules are it's just there like the rules
Yeah.
are there to be broken and they're there to be adapted to what you need.
The rules are
Um
just there for when you need a resolution mechanic, and it's basically your resolution. The rules are just there to be the resolution mechanic. They get out of your
mhm,
way and just say, "Okay, do stuff." Like,
yeah. And that's in as a player that's always my kind of game is like I
mm,
want a game where the mechanics don't like they move to the side and they're there if you need them, but for the most part you can just get in it.
yeah.
Um
I
in
also just like, I also prefer
any
bell
PBTA
curve
it's like
success.
any PBTA system that I've played has all been very much so like just get in the dirt, play
Mm-hmm.
the game. The mechanics are there when you need to like resolve something that isn't
Yes.
resolvable through narrative. Like they're there to support the story. Like they like you aren't just playing the mechanics and then a story builds around them. The mechanics are just there to support what you're doing.
Oh yeah, and I love that about the game. And this is me, Mr. Crunchy McGee. I'm Captain Crunch over here. I am giving Powered by the Apocalypse games my big old seal or of approval. So even if you like Swihand, and I'm big on trying all kinds of games because
hmm
it after playing Powered by the Apocalypse games, it really changed the way I look at TTRPGs, the way I look at games, the way I look at running games, the way I look
hmm
at playing games, the way I look at writing games.
Well,
It
the only way to be good at all of those things is to get as much as you can, like
Yes.
play as many as you can, read as many as you can, like be exposed to as much
Mm-hmm.
different kinds of content, and that makes you a better GM, player, game designer. Like
Yeah.
just take it all in.
It's like, and it like the thing is like I know a lot of folks love 5e and want to make 5e do fucking everything, but here's the thing: it's not made to do everything. Stop it. Don't like. It's just it's not gonna work well. But like, try different games. You'll find out. Oh shit, this game works really well for what I want it to do, and like, you'll find that your systems are starting to really you're having fun not just because you're goofing off with friends and telling cool stories, but you're gonna start having fun because the game is helping you tell those stories with your friends. And that's what Powered by the Apocalypse does beautifully, is it helps you tell those stories that you're trying to tell with your friends.
Because that's why we play games.
Exactly. Anyway, you want to turn it over to questions if the audience has any?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions for our last few moments? Thanks for letting us shout about these things.
Polyamorous, I would at you, but I agree with you 100%.
But yeah, like this is obviously this was a more general overview. With later system talks, we're definitely gonna we'll probably end up doing an episode that I'm sure
I'm doing a City of
Alex
Mist
wants
episode.
to talk about City of Mist. I want to yell about masks forever. So I'm sure we'll do some more PbtA episodes of this, like talking about specific games. But we wanted to well, first of all, everybody voted for us to do this, which was awesome. So we'll probably do more polls to help decide future episodes. But we wanted to kind of start with this umbrella concept of what is PbtA as a whole, so that when we dive into the other specific systems and talking about what they have that's unique from other PbtA games, everything is established already as far as like what the basis of a PbtA game is, which is really useful.
So okay, we got some questions. Polyamorous Q asks, "What's your favorite move in any Powered by the Apocalypse game?" Ooh, I do love me the monologue moves where it's like you can like get up like a +1 by monologue and some shit. Like I love that stuff because I love me some film noir bullshit because I'm a real life private investigator. Let me live that fantasy that my job is actually interesting. Thank you.
Let me find it. The first one that pops into my head is from Masks, because of course it is. And it's a move from the Protege Playbook called "Been Reading the Files," and I'm just gonna flip to it because it's easier. And it's super cool because it's one of these moves that lets the player add something to the world, which is really cool. And it also like kind of takes a little bit off the GM's plate because they don't have to do all this world building. You can just ask your players like, hey, you're going to this building, what's in there? But
Right.
Been Reading the Files is from the Protege Playbook. So the Protege Playbook is inspired by characters like Robin from Batman and Robin. Like it's a hero that's built around having a mentor. So you learned about the superhuman world through your mentor's resources. When you first encounter an important superpowered phenomenon, roll plus superior on a hit, you tell the team one important detail you've learned from your studies.
Okay, can I change?
So it's basically when you're going into a conflict and you're like, all right, I've been reading the files, and if you succeed your role, you're like, oh, well, this particular villain doesn't like water, or like you get to make something up about it that shapes the world, and then the GM will tell you if anything is different since. But it's like, oh, well, in the time you read this is actually true now, and will kind of give you something different, which I love that ability to like help shape the world a little bit and gives the player a little like gets to have some fun with it. So that's popped immediately into my head as one of my favorite moves.
I want to change my answer.
Okay.
Chris let me get away with a lot of bullshit. And he would let me do like team up Avenger style moves as like moves, right? He'd just be like, "Oh yeah, team up," or like we just come up with a name on the fly, like that custom move stuff. Honestly, I just think that's my favorite thing. Is just when people like, and I've seen it where when you do a team up move, both players roll one of their d6s and then they add them and their tags together to get their success. I love shit that inspires cooperation and like playing with other characters even when it's not their turn, quote unquote turn. I love that shit. I love it.
Yeah, like so yeah, that kind of stuff is so fun. Yeah, that's probably my favorite one.
All right, Corey Hickson asks, "What's your favorite Powered by the Apocalypse mechanic that you've seen?" Ooh, that's a tough one.
We do not have time for me to talk about how much I love labels and label shifting in Masks. But the basic overview is your stats in Masks are labels, and your labels obviously like associate with different moves that you make of like your basic moves, but something that's super super cool is that your labels are always in flux. Like your stats are not
Mm-hmm.
locked until if you advance far enough, you have the ability to lock one of your stats, but otherwise your stats move
Yeah.
and they can be shifted by somebody that has influence over you, which is another mechanic in the game, can shift them based on like how they perceive you. Like adults can shift your labels, like you can shift your own. Um, and that aspect of something that is always moving and always in flux, I think, is awesome from a mechanical standpoint and from a narrative standpoint because it shows how your vision of yourself changes based on like how other people perceive you.
Mm-hmm.
So that like I could go on forever and I will when we eventually do an episode
Yes.
where I talk about masks.
Uh,
But the label shifting is just
I love corruption in Urban Shadows. I love it because you have all these different kinds of moves that basically build up your corruption as you play, and like some of them are like intimacy moves. Oh my lord! When you share a moment of intimacy, physical or emotional, with someone who is not mortal, mark corruption. Like that's an example of one. And then you
ooh,
can like build up
love
these
it.
corruption, and it's super flavorful. And you build up these corruptions that can eventually like basically make you retire your character as they become like corrupted by like the
Mm,
shadows and shit.
that's so cool.
And it's just
Um,
I love corruption mechanics in games. I don't know why. I just
yeah.
think it's so I think it's because one of my favorite tropes is the road to hell is paved with the best intentions. Like the
Hmm.
fucking Arthas, like the Lich King, like that's like one of my favorite video game storylines is Arthas becoming the Lich King because he just like that's what that shit mirrors, and I love
Hmm.
corruption mechanics for it.
Yeah. Hydro Forge RPG says, I'm a new TTRPG creator working on a PbtA hack. Awesome. Yes, PbtA hacks are awesome. Um, any suggestions on how to engage in the TTRPG community and build awareness for non-D&D projects? And what I would have said was also answer in chat, find existing communities, like get involved
Mm-hmm.
with them, find other people who are designing games and talk to them. Um, there are some awesome discords out there
We
with
talk
people
about
that
it a
are
lot in ours.
writing and hacking games. It's really just it's surrounding yourself with people who are doing that because there are so many amazing indie game developers out there who are doing incredible things that you just once you connect with them, it's easy to find that support system
Yes.
when you're creating stuff like creating D&D content is easier to get a lot of exposure to because that's just the way that the landscape of TTRPGs leans. But there is a great, good, talented community making stuff that isn't D&D content. You just
Yes.
need to go find them.
And not only
Um,
that, so like you're making your game, if you see shit that you like, you even though you might have like less than 100 followers, you gotta shout to the mountaintops.
mm-hmm.
You gotta tell people like I like this shit because that's how I've made a lot of my connections is by fanboying over their content, and then that it's like you gotta give a little to get a little. You know what I'm saying? Scratch my back, scratch
Yeah.
yours. Like
Yep.
if you want to build that sense of community, you got to put something of
Mm-hmm.
value into the community. And yes, you're making something that is something of value in the community. Don't get
Yep.
me wrong, but value is also built by hyping up other games, hyping up other creators, showing your friends these games because like that's how I've found about a lot of really cool games. I found out about one of my favorites, Zweihander. We've mentioned it a few times for being very crunchy. I found it because people were talking about how much they
Mm-hmm.
loved it and they were talking about why they loved it, and I'm like, wait a fucking minute, why have I not heard of this game? Why am I not playing this game? And by when you're talking about it, you don't know. Like you might have that moment of someone like me, and you can ask Daniel Fox. I'm like one of his biggest fans. Like I'm like a Zweihander shill at this point. Like so you don't know the effect you're gonna have
Mhm.
when you go and share that
And
shit.
and also it in um like in the meltdown said the indie game community is really super active on Twitter. That's a good place to start. And even like Alex said, like you put your stuff out into the world, and then if you're there to like boost and talk about stuff you like that means so much
Mm-hmm.
to an indie creator to like hear somebody say something positive about something they've written, and that means just it means the world to people
Yes.
to hear somebody say, I really liked this thing that you made. And that's how you form those connections with by like hyping other people's stuff, and you form those connections by saying like, hey, I really like what you do.
Yeah,
Um,
and now my copy is
and
Zweihander signed by the guy who made the fucking game. I hung out with him at PAX U. Like, that's what
yeah,
happens
Mr.
when you can build, like,
Zweihander.
when you hype someone up. If you
Mhm.
hype them up good and you like your hype is 100% like genuine, people see that. People know that. I know when people are giving me fake hype and they only want to hype me up because they can get something out of me. But if you genuinely hype up stuff you like, those people
Mhm.
will see that.
Yep.
And so like then when you put your game out, those people you hyped up, they're going to be there for you. And you've made yourself a community, or you've
Mhm.
essentially joined that community. And people then hype your stuff up, and then like when the time comes, you return the favor for them, right?
Mhm.
Like it's a one giant like it's a circle. It's just this like kind of everyone giving everyone a little bit of love
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah,
like
you just
I love
find
the
your people.
I love the indie community for it is instead of all the love being hogged by 2 or 3 big companies. Looking at you, Watsy. It's all kind of dispersed about amongst a bunch of different
Mhm.
people. And speaking of hyping fellow creators, both Chase and Matthew Foreman are in the chat tonight, and they wrote, okay, it's not powered by the apocalypse, but they wrote a modern age adventure about fighting 30 to 50 feral hogs for Green Ronin. So on Green Ronin, check it out.
But but
I
that's
mean,
what it
that's
is. Yeah, it's not it's a bunch of people that are just very excited about what one another is putting out. There's so many really good Kickstarters out there right now for
mm-hmm.
different systems that it's really a good time to be
Yes.
in the
Oh,
indie
I'm
RPG
I'm calling
community.
I've been calling this the RPG Renaissance. Like
Like
this is
there's
like the
so
second
many
golden age, right?
there's so many brilliant creators making stuff that are hacks of existing things like PbtA or completely new systems like Bolt
mm-hmm.
um, that are just so cool. So
Yeah,
just get out there and check stuff out.
and like, like sure, you might not make a ton of money, but like it's the friends you make along the way. And trust me, like I
Mhm.
didn't think people would give a shit when I started this whole streaming thing. It's kind of related. But like I didn't think people would give a fuck about what I was making. Lo and behold, pretty early on people actually did start caring. And because when you put stuff out, the people who want to find it, they're going to find it. And they're going to tell their people that other people that they know, and they'll go and find it. So like just even though like the numbers might look low and stuff, just remember you might be making someone's day.
Mhm.
And if you could be making one person's whole ass day with that
Mhm.
thing. And that's
Yeah.
what's worth it to me. Is like fuck 10K, 20K followers, fuck the money, fuck that shit. But like seeing people being jazzed about my games and my stories I'm telling, and like seeing the like how they positively relate to those stories is what makes it so worth it. And I hope that's what you can get out of like making your own games is some similar feeling.
Mhm.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
gotta. Whew.
Here, let me put your soapbox away. Let me scoot that over there.
All right, I think we got a little sidetrack there, but that
Yeah.
was a good tangent. I feel like we both
Yeah.
needed to say that. That was really
Yeah.
important. Unless there's anything else, I mean, I'm hungry. I haven't eaten dinner yet, so.
So yeah, like what so sorry, I
Oh,
can't
funny
type and talk at
story.
the same time.
Funny quick
Um
story. I was like, I want to run a post-apocalyptic thing because I've been playing Wasteland lately. What system should I use? And I'm sitting here like, oh man, what should I use? And I'm like, wait a minute,
let me see.
Apocalypse World, dude. What are you
Oh,
doing?
yeah. So just get out there. Just eat all of the PbtA
Play it.
content. You will find something that you like under the umbrella of PbtA. I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee it. There's so much out there for everyone. You just got to find it. I say repeatedly, like if you're playing a game and there's parts of it that you don't like, then go find a game that has that is a game that you do want to play. Like life is too short to play games that you're unhappy playing. You just got to go
Exactly.
out. There's a whole plethora of games out there.
And that's why we
Um,
do this talk show. So we can
and
talk
that's
about
why
all
we're
those
here.
games out
We
there.
can talk about
All
games.
all the different games out there that you could possibly be playing that aren't made by WotC or Paizo. So we don't know what we're going to do next. We'll probably do another poll. What do you think,
Yeah, we'll
Megan?
probably we'll probably do a poll.
Not to
Because
put you under any
there's
pressure to answer right now or anything.
oh, I mean, like I've got some locked and loaded that I'd be happy to talk about, but we can do a poll. Why not? Let's do
Right?
something. Let's get wild. Let's just do a poll.
So,
But that's yeah, we'll be here maybe next month. We'll see how life. I don't know what time is. I've become completely untethered from the time stream here in Eternal March. So
as I say, the only time I know what time it is when I'm at work.
yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this wonderful chat. There was some discourse. We did gush about a few games more than others, but
Yeah, well,
you know.
this is gonna happen.
Uh,
So let you did intro. So how about you tell us who you are and where we can find you and what you're doing?
so I'm Mr. Puddins.
Because we did intros, so.
Yeah, I'm Alex. You can call me Mr. Puddins. I help run things. I'm the stream daddy, Chromatic Chimera. That just basically means I produce a lot of the content here. Um, if you are interested in seeing a Powered by the Apocalypse game, we have VODs on our YouTube channel from our City of Mist campaign that Chris ran. I played in it. Dead Winter. It was a good time. I basically played someone who was the Avatar Van Helsing from Dracula, so that was a lot of fun. We actually had a lot of really cool character concepts in that. Like we had
Oh, I know Sam played the Baba Yaga.
Sam played Baba Yaga. Anna Nymeria, she played Aviva, like a Jewish woman who was like the mythos of the golem living inside her. Check it out.
Oh.
Or we have a new show starting. I'm not going to be in it, but Sam's going to be in it. We got some awesome folks that I can't think of off the top of my head who are going to be in the game, even though I helped pick them.
Being emceed by Finn the Bin.
Finn the
who's
Bin.
Lovely, lovely and wonderful. Mystery of the Mojave?
Yes.
Monsters of the Mojave?
Mysteries of the
Mysteries
Mojave.
of the Mojave.
It's a Monster of the Week campaign that will be played on Saturdays. I don't have time details in front of me. Just follow our stuff, and you'll see when that is supposed to go live. And it's about basically people. It's very much a Monster of the Week campaign in the Mojave Desert in Nevada, and they play as animal control. I love the concept. Like when Finn told me the concept, I'm like, fuck yeah. Anyway, that's me. Don't follow me. Follow Chromatic Chimera. That's where all the cool shit is.
Yeah, and I've been Megan. I mean I will continue to be Megan after this, but I have prior to this also been Megan. You can find me most places on the internet at Megan Lynn FTW. You can find me here on Mondays with No Initiative playing Quest the Soaring City, where I play an absolute disaster spy who I love very much. She is just a raging garbage fire, and I adore her. You can find me here at the end of the month on the 29th for my show Unprepared, where I facilitate GMless and prepless indie games for a rotating group of players. This month we are playing Beak, Feather, and Bone, which is a world-building game about a city of raven folk, which is really cool. I'm very, very excited. And I'm also an indie game designer, and you can find my games at meganlynnftw.itch.io. If you like narrative-focused GM-less games, that's basically what I'm bringing to the table. So
And they're
you can
great.
find them over on my itch.io page. So
check it out. They're fucking great. They're so much fun.
I'm trying to be better about taking compliments. Thank you for saying kind things about the things that I write.
I need to start taking a page out of Bender's book. Like, Alex, you're great. Shut up, baby. I know
baby, I know it.
Anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. If you liked what you saw, follow for more Chromatic Chimera content and more wonderful games that aren't Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to rate our friends at Heroes Without Limits, so do stick around and let them know we say hello. And